So I was abused, sexually abused by my maternal grandfather. Probably started around the age 3 and stopped when he died when I was 11. He also abused my mother and most of her siblings and my siblings and many other people. Probably anybody that, came in contact with him, to be honest. And I had my memories at 15, which was really difficult. And sort of as my book kind of takes you through my 20s and the struggles that I had with my mental health and things that were going on in my life.
Welcome to another episode of the Imperfectly Perfect podcast. With your host, Glenn Marsden, we go beyond the surface to share truths, journeys, and raw stories from some of the world's most prominent public figures. From entertainment and sports to corporate leaders, personal development experts, spiritual mentors, and leading medical and scientific professionals, each guest brings a powerful message of resilience and transformation. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel to stay updated on every episode as we continue our mission to change the narrative around mental health, one story at a time.
I would like to introduce my special guest today, Kimberley Shannon Murphy. Welcome to the show here in Australia, Kimberley.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Now, I've spent the past 2 weeks just reading your story in depth, and I've seen so many interviews that you've done regarding your story. And before we get into that story, one of the questions, because the Imperfectly Perfect campaign is around mental health, how are you feeling?
I'm not going to say it's not difficult sometimes to do these, but every time I do them, I hear from somebody, at least 1 to 10 to 20 people, about how much it's helped them. And so that's why I wrote my book in the first place, and that's why I did it. So it's all part of the journey.
So just to give a little bit of background around, I spoke in your bio about this incredible career you've had, and you've put yourself in danger's way through being a stunt double and a stunt coordinator. But behind all that, there's a huge story in terms of what you went through with abuse. And it's a really hard topic, and I want to be sensitive and obviously respectful in what you want to speak about. And this is what we're here today to talk about your book. Where do we begin?
Well, I mean, it's the exact reason I wrote the book, was to give voices to people that feel like they've been silenced by their abuser, or in my case, when it happens in a family system, it's very difficult to speak out and to tell your story because there's so many layers and so many people are connected to it. And I'm trying to give a voice to survivors that have been in situations like mine, because they are different. And I think it's a really important thing that we don't talk about enough.
If you don't mind, as I say, respectfully, and where you want to go with this, can we just take it into a little bit of your story so people get an idea that may have not heard?
Yeah. So I was sexually abused by my maternal grandfather. Probably started around the age 3 and stopped when he died when I was 11. He also abused my mother and most of her siblings and my siblings and many other people. Probably anybody that, came in contact with him, to be honest. And I had my memories at 15, which was really difficult. And sort of as my book kind of takes you through my 20s and the struggles that I had with my mental health and things that were going on in my life, trying to deal with or cope with what was happening. And I became a professional dancer for Alvin Ailey, and then went on to become an acrobat and kind of toured the world doing that. And then sort of got into stunts right after that. So the book takes you through my whole life and through my stunt career, and then kind of how I came out the other side, or am coming out the other side.
And that's what essentially the Imperfectly Perfect campaign is about. It's this adversity, this human experience we go through to help other people, because storytelling, truth telling is a form of healing. And I know that you have said throughout your book, when your grandfather, your abuser, did pass at 11, that's where you really started relaying and stepping into living again. So how did you navigate those first years? Because you did speak very openly in that book. You are a truth teller, and you've always been that. But your family, and one thing I love through the book is you even mentioned the word imperfections. On an external, there's this family who is always shiny and polished to the outside world, but on the internal, it's dysfunctional, it's imperfect. So how did you navigate that when there was people around you that weren't so forthcoming in sharing what had happened to them either?
I didn't really navigate it. I feel like I'm navigating it now. I do feel like I'm on the other side of it now, and that came with a lot of painful conversations and walkaways or people walking away from me. I do believe that in a family system like this, most of the time there is that outward perfection that is portrayed to the outside world to make people think that you're this perfect family. That's how it was for us. And on the inside, we were, living under this abusive roof, and sort of trickle down to generation. I do feel like, there's always one person that's born to be the truth teller in a family like this. And I do believe that is the reason that I'm here and doing what I'm doing. And I've always felt that way. And I think it's a really important thing to be speaking about.
What would you say to anybody that may be listening to this, experiencing very similar? How was it to essentially step into that truth and speak out and then not get the support that you thought you would?
I think the support looks different for everybody and depending on what stage in your journey you're in. When I originally spoke out and my mother had spoke out as well about it, it felt like I was supported at that time in my life. It felt like my mom was supporting me. And I think she was to the best of her ability. And as I furthered my journey, many people didn't further theirs. And so there comes a time where it just doesn't, you can't heal around the people that sort of made you sick, and you can't heal around the people that are keeping you sick or trying to keep you in a place when I was just wanting to get out of it. So, I mean, it's a really difficult thing and so much easier said than done that you can't heal around the people that made you sick. So walk away. I mean, it's so easy to say that when it's your family, it's a whole different situation. But it is the truth. I mean, you have to understand that you only have control over yourself and you only have control over what your journey looks like, and everybody else's journey is a different journey and you can't control theirs. I got stuck in that for a really long time, trying to sort of show everybody the right way, or what I felt like was the right way to sort of navigate through this horrific childhood that I had and that my mother had. And in doing that, I kept myself back from moving forward in my healing because I wanted everyone to come with me. Like I wanted to bring everybody with me, but nobody wanted to come, or they weren't ready to come at that time. And so I think that's a really not a mistake we make, but it's a human, it's just being human, and you love your family, you have an attachment to your family, you want them to grow and be okay. And the unfortunate truth is you can't do it for them. You can't do the work for anybody but you.
And you said something within your book, and I think it's really essential to point this out when you were speaking to your sister, and she didn't want to go back because she didn't want to relive it. And you respected that, but it's almost like, why is nobody wanting to speak about this? And this is how we can break these generational patterns. But one of the things, and the beautiful soul that I saw throughout your book, was your Aunt Pat, who sadly passed away now. And like you've said in previous interviews, you feel like you've brought her writing through your book because she always wanted to be a writer, which is stunning. It might be an emotional question, but I know she's passed, but writing your book and looking back and sharing some of her words and her testimony towards you, what would you say to her if she was in front of you? Now the book's out and you've shared her words and all the help that she had through that time.
I think she's been an inspiration for many people. I know that she has actually. So many people have reached out to me about her particularly and how moved they were by her presence in the book and who she was for me as a person. I do believe that I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for her. She was the first truth teller in my family, and she got so blinded by everybody else's pain, and I believe in turn that's where or how she got Alzheimer's. If you follow Dr. Mate's work, he's much of the feeling of, when you have trauma stored in your body, it manifests itself as illness. And I do believe that her brain just got to a point where she couldn't handle it anymore. she kind of took on everybody's pain and was just sort of our safe space. And all of us kind of, regurgitated everything at her. And I think it ultimately did make her sick. But I do know that she's with me, and I know that she's proud of the book. And I'm so happy that I was able to get her words published, because it was something that she always wanted in her life and she was never able to do it. So I know that she's really proud of that.
That's beautiful. And I know you've got a close relationship with your mum. And when you did speak out to your mum, she took you to her therapist. Did your Aunt Pat ever get time to go to a therapist as well? Or I know that you said she took everyone else's energy on, and essentially that's where it came from. Did she ever get the chance to go and speak and offload herself?
She did a lot of retreats and she would disappear and do these retreats where she'd be gone for 10 days in the mountains. And some of them were like silent retreats where she wouldn't speak for 2 weeks. So I have a feeling that she did some psychedelic work. I do think that she did. As far as my mom goes, I actually don't speak to my mother anymore. That was something just recently. My father actually passed away a month ago. And, you know, it was a really interesting time for me because nobody told me that he was sick and nobody told me that he died. I had to hear it secondhand. Like nobody made a phone call to me, not even my mother. And to me, it was obviously I was very angry at the beginning, but then I was just sort of like, wow, my family is so traumatized that even in the wake of someone's death, my father's death, there's nobody that could see past the trauma to know right from wrong. Like, regardless of what's happened, regardless of whether we agree with Kim going out in public and telling her story, this is her father. She deserves to know, none of that happened. And I just needed to walk away from everybody.
I mean, the story that you tell, it's just amazing. Like me and my wife, we put a projector in our bedroom so we could
Oh, nice.
link the laptops. We've been reading your story together, and just we've got a daughter, 6 years old, and she was in the middle watching her iPad, and we're reading it, tears down my face and tears down my wife's face, and the story that you tell, I mean, you lived this experience, and what you've done now, I'll just say first and foremost, is so inspirational, stepping up and speaking the truth. What has the response been to you? You've said you get a lot of messages, but just to know that you're saving lives by sharing yours, and what have you learned from your healing process?
Well, I mean, the most incredible thing, there's been so many incredible things that have happened since I spoke about it. And the biggest thing is it helped heal me in so many ways. I did start doing a lot of psychedelic work. When I say a lot, with a doctor, under a doctor's care. I do it about twice a year. And that has really like catapulted my healing. I like to say that it's sort of like, it makes you see things for what they are, not what you want them to be. So many times we grow up and whatever traumas we've had in our life, we sort of have this lens that we look through our traumas, through our pain, through whatever we've been through. And we never see things for what they actually are. And I think for me, doing psychedelics sort of lifts the protectors off of your brain and allows you to see things really for what they are in a safe space. And obviously, Romate has been a huge influential person in my life and in my story. And 2 years ago, when I reached out to him and we connected, I asked him to endorse my book if he felt called to it when he read it. And he was like, send it to me. And never thought he would endorse it, which he did. Never thought that I would be then doing like a live event with him. I'm doing a live event with him in October in Santa Monica. Never thought that would ever happen. Which is just amazing to be connected with him in my healing journey, because to me, he is such a huge representation of what trauma is and gives a definition like no other, and a definition that makes people that have been through severe trauma go, oh my God, yes, that's what I feel and that's what it is. And he breaks it down in such a beautiful way. So it's been really incredible for me to have him. And I've connected with Dr. Schwartz, who is the founder of IFS, Internal Family Systems. I just came back from a retreat with him. And he's been hugely influential in my healing as well. And, you know, if I didn't write the book, I would have never connected with these people. So it feels really amazing.
Yeah, because even with the career you've had, and you've had an incredible career, there's a point that you share in your story where you got hurt at one point with shards of glass in your face and you kept coming back to set and everyone telling you to go to emergency. But that pain, that internal pain to the external, it was kind of like your coping mechanism that if you could feel that, you wasn't feeling that. So when it comes to the psychedelics, because I'm really interested in this stuff, and you did it obviously as a personal point of view with a doctor, but you spoke at the end of your book regarding seeing that inner child, that little girl. Can you just take us there a little bit? And what is that experience like? Because for somebody who is on the spiritual journey or not knowing anything about it,
Mm.
do you visually see the little girl? I'm really fascinated about this because I've never gone down that route.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think that when you're abused from such a young age, you have this disconnection that you do with your body, which is a normal thing. It happens with survivors, because the pain is too much. It's too overwhelming. You're able to just, like, I would say, I would just leave my body when it was happening to me. So I never really felt connected with myself. Didn't really know who I was, didn't really feel like I had an identity without my grandfather, because it felt like that was my first memories of my life. And then he was gone and I didn't know who I was. And all I had was like these memories of him hurting me. And that was my childhood. And I remember even my husband at one point saying to me, like, don't you have any good memories of your childhood? And I'm like, no, I actually don't, because if this wasn't happening, if I wasn't in a situation with him, I was at home trying to work through it in my 7-year-old brain, and it's just impossible. Um, so when I went into my first psychedelic experience, my biggest thing was that I wanted to connect with my inner child. I felt like that's where my healing was going to start, was being able to connect with her, letting her know that I was here, that I was doing the work, that she was safe to show me things. And that's exactly what happened. She literally like was just there, in my head, but like she was there, and I just sort of connected with her. I had a full day of just kind of going back and forth with dialogue with her. And I remember after my journey, I called Gabor and I was like, that was the craziest thing I've ever. You don't know until you know. And when you know, you can't unknow. I just said to him, like, that's the craziest thing that ever happened to me. Like my little girl was there. He's like, I know. And then weeks after I started having like a lot of memories would come to me, and I would like look down in the shower and I'd see her feet and not my feet. And I was like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. And so I texted Gabor and I was like, I think I'm losing my mind. I'm like seeing child's feet in my shower, but they're my feet, but they're her feet. I don't know what's going on. And he's like, no, no. As she trusts you more, she'll show you more. And it's
Wow.
exactly what happened.
That's incredible. And you just everyone you talk to, you learn wisdom from, and you confirm something for me. I had Dr. Jodie Spencer on the show, Wim Hof, Les Brown, and they said this thing where I was at the start of kind of my faith spiritual journey. And they all said, Glenn, once you know, and there's no way going back. And I
Yes.
used to be like, what the bloody hell is everyone talking about? What do I not know? And then the further and the deeper you go. But psychedelics is something that I've not gone down that. One of my friends, a leading shaman, and he was
Okay.
talking about it with doctors and saying you should go down this way and what you're doing is being led and all this. But the journey is just incredible. But moving on, where you've shared this story and it's gone out from the people around you that knew you, because I know you revert to in the book where you first met Cameron Diaz in your
Mhm.
work environment, and you're not really shared that part, and you thought, oh, I'm gonna send some of my story over. Oh, and then I've lost a friendship. Because a lot of people
Mhm.
can't speak to people, let alone in the workplace. And you chose to do that with somebody that you respected. What was the response to that? And what was the thinking for anybody out there going, I can't tell a friend, I can't tell anything because they're going to think differently of me?
That was definitely like that was definitely something where I met her and I felt this instant like connection to her, more because of just the human that she was, that I was watching on set, just her off camera, just being a human being to everyone. And she was just this incredible soul who just knew everyone's name and spoke to everybody the same. And she was just so incredible. I looked up to her so much. And I think she felt really safe to me. And even though we weren't that close, we got close very fast. And yeah, when I sent her all of my my original stuff that I wrote that is not in the book, yeah, it just brought us closer. And she's been such a huge support to me through all of this. And even though what I had written 15 years ago definitely was more of like an exorcism, it was just me like throwing up on page, which I think is so healing in so many ways for people that have had trauma, is writing about it. And that's basically what that was back then. And then, manifested itself into this book eventually. And she was a huge part of all of this for me.
And I mean, that's incredible. Obviously, that's your work and your profession as a Hollywood stunt double and coordinator, but it can be anyone in general. Like you say, do you feel it's important to share that with the next person as part of your healing process? Because for you, you wrote it down, and that in itself, a lot of people do it through art. I did photography, the image is she, is people. And people don't realize, like, I was sharing my story through these images as well. You did it through writing. So how important is it, or what would you like to say to people out there that are struggling, that don't know how to open up to that person, be it their work colleague or their friend?
I think I've come across a lot of people that haven't even said it out loud. You know, I've gotten a few messages from people, older people, that have said, "Oh my God, you gave me the strength to tell." My husband didn't even know. We've been married for 20 years, and he didn't even know that I was abused. Um, and that is exactly why I wrote this. But I do feel like a lot of people feel like my sister does. If I go there, I'll never come back. And it's quite the opposite. Because if you don't go there, you are behaving in ways in your present life that are filtered through your trauma. You're treating your kids in a certain way. You're being triggered all the time. You're trying to manage your emotions. So your body's dealing with it or trying to deal with it. So going there is the only thing that's going to get you to the next step of your healing journey. And that means something different for everybody. So for some people who haven't said it out loud, it is just simply writing it down for themselves and then, taking those baby steps. But I do feel like that's a really big thing and a really big feeling that a lot of people have especially about incest, is that if I talk about it, my family will hate me, nobody will believe me. And what I say to that is, who cares?
Share your truth, and it's part of your healing. Now, this is a loaded question because it's a personal thing that when your family on the external, they were going to church and there's all this thing around faith and everything. What's your belief now? Because you've gone through healing when you was little and what you went through, and you're hearing on an external about God, and then this is happening to you. Where was you sat in relation to faith then and now?
Oh, I had no faith whatsoever. I mean, it was almost like it was used against us in a way, and it felt really abusive, honestly. There was one part of the book where it talks about my grandfather's funeral, and that, all of his children that went up and spoke about him and all the amazing things they said about him. And my aunt said that he reminded her of Jesus. And that's been like stuck in my head my whole life. So obviously getting older, having a relationship with God or whatever, it was really difficult for me. But through doing psychedelic work, I've seen like the other plane, that we are just one stratosphere of this universe, and it's so much bigger than us. And I do believe in God, and I do believe that, the universe is really powerful and that everything happens for a reason. I do think that I'm going to get all like woo-woo now, but I do think that I chose my parents, and I do think that I chose them so I could go through what I went through, so I could be doing what I'm doing. Because the reality is, without my story, I wouldn't be telling my story. So I just think there's a lot of power and a lot of strength in looking at it that way, instead of, and not that there's anything wrong with that, because I went through that time where it was like, how could this happen to me? Why is this happening to me? Why? The whys don't get you anywhere. When I started, turning that around and looking at it like, yes, this is my story. This is my past. I cannot change it. What am I going to do about it? How am I going to use this to help people? And, and that's why I wrote my book.
When I ask every single guest of mine, what does being imperfectly perfect mean to you, Kimberley?
Oh my gosh. We're all imperfectly beautiful, right? I mean, there's no such thing as perfect. I think there's a reason why we changed that for our kids, right? It used to be like practice makes perfect when we were kids. And now it's practice makes progress because there's no such thing as perfect. And we tell our children that, but I think we put so much pressure on ourselves that we tell our kids one thing and put a different pressure on ourselves. But I think it's exactly that, you know, practice makes progress and there is no such thing as perfect.
Love it. I love listening to everyone's answer when it comes to that question. And just in relation to your message for anybody out there, survivors or those who are struggling, what would you like to say?
The two doctors that I mentioned on here, Dr. Gabor Mate and Dr. Richard Schwartz, like the amazing thing about the internet now, which, I didn't have when I was a kid, which is you can go on YouTube and you can watch, their videos after videos of like Dr. Schwartz does a lot of parts work, which I do some of. And, just listening to them talk is so healing and, it's free. So it's somewhere that everybody can start.
Yeah, and keep on speaking about it. And then tell us about your incredible event with Dr. Gabor Mate. I've been following that guy for ages. He's incredible.
He's incredible. Yeah, he just said to me a few months ago, he's like, you want to do an event together? I'm like, what? He doesn't do events with people, like normal people. It's always with a bunch of doctors. And I'm like, really? And so he's like, well, let's do a Zoom and see if we can find a good name and a good topic we want to do, which we're doing return to self, navigating attachment and authenticity, which was a huge thing in my healing process. And he speaks a lot about that in his work. So yeah, we're doing an event in Santa Monica on October 6th, and it's an all-day event from 10 to 5, and it's going to be amazing. And we're going to, do a lot of audience like interaction, bring people on stage that he can work with if they want to. If not, obviously you don't have to, but he is incredible in person. So different than watching him online. It changed my life the first time I heard him speak in person. So if you haven't seen him speak in person, you definitely should do it before, he's not doing it anymore. But yeah, he's amazing.
He truly is. And then what's next for you? Because obviously you've still got this incredible career, stunt coordinator, and you do all that. And now you've got the book and the speaking and this. What is something that you'd like to see through all this? And I know it's to help people heal and move forward, but you've obviously found your voice even more now on a global platform. Like what's the hopes?
Just that I can be, not only the book, but that I can continually be someone that people look up to, that gives them hope that it is possible to get through something this bad and there is light on the other side and you don't have to live in the darkness. I think, you're not alone is like such a huge thing. And I think when we go through something like this, we do feel really alone a lot of times. And it's just nice to know that you're not.
And where can people find out more information about you? All the links will be up, obviously, but from yourself, where can people find more?
I literally only do Instagram because I can't do like all of the things. It's too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, my Instagram page, which is Kimberley Shannon Murphy Stunts, the longest name on the planet. And my website, which is kimberleyshannon.murphy.com, I think. It's terrible. I don't know.
Try keep saying imperfectly perfect campaign. Every time you're about, I have to abbreviate it to like IPC, and they're like, what's IPC? I'm like, I can't keep saying imperfectly perfect campaign. You're like Kimberley Shannon Murphy.
Yeah, it's like the longest name. Yeah.
All the time. Well, I just want to say on behalf of myself, the campaign, Australia, our audience, thank you for taking the time for coming on and sharing your story. You're making a huge difference with sharing your truths. And I just wish you all the best with it.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Guys, I'm going to put all the links up to where you can find out more about Kimberley. Until then, keep having the hard conversations, keep sharing your truths, because it's the hard conversations that save lives.
Want to learn more about our work? Visit our official website and discover how one man, Glenn Marsden, redefined imperfection and built a global movement.